Just gonna park right here next to this tree so we get some good shade. Close to this tree. You can stop beeping at me. I know. Just kidding. Of course I wasn't really swearing. I love my car. Let me show you what happens when I turn this puppy on. Now, I don't know how many of you would have noticed, but I have noticed that on my YouTube channel, I am now up past 500 subscribers. So I feel like a big time YouTube star by now. And I figured that meant that I should do a video like a real YouTuber would do. So I was researching what real YouTubers do. And one thing that I've seen is when they show a car collection. Either their own car collection or someone else's. For instance, I saw a video on Lady Gaga's car collection. They showed 16 of the cars from her collection, including one car that used to belong to Elvis Presley and that kind of thing. So I figured that I could show you my car collection because you might want to see the car collection of a professional flute player. Well, here it is. It's just this one car, but it's pretty cool. It's a Prius Prime 2017, and so it's a plug-in hybrid. Oh, and hey, it should go without saying, of course, but like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, comment, share, etc., etc. Ah! Alright, so it's true, I only have this one smoking hot, fabulous vehicle. But what I do have a little collection of is car analogies that I like to tell my students. They're somewhat unrelated to each other, but they all have to do with a car. So I'm going to tell you my 3 car analogies. And I know that it's approaching the end of summer. Maybe many of you are on road trips or going to take a road trip soon. Perhaps you're even going to drive a car to college. Some of you may be lucky enough to be driving a car to college where you will work with me. So these would be excellent things for you to ponder while you're in your car on the road. So let's start with my first analogy, which actually was inspired by purchasing this car, because this car has many defaults that you need to set. So what I want you to think about is your defaults as a flute player. For instance, I showed you one of the defaults where if I get too close to something, the car starts beeping at me, and it beeps more and more the closer I get. I find it annoying, and I find that I can tell when I'm getting close to something. There are so many other defaults on this car. I'll show you a few of these other defaults. Lane departure alert, steering assist mode. Guess I have that off right now. Change lane departure alert sensitivity. Turn parking assist on or off. Intelligent clearance sonar on and off. Turns blind spot monitor on and off. Lane sway warning status. I like that one even though it's off. You see that coffee cup that's right there? This is what the lane sway warning does. When I was recently on a road trip, I had that thing on, and I was in a part of the interstate where I was forced to be between lanes for a while. That thing went crazy. It thought I was between lanes, not on purpose. It started going off, showing me that little coffee cup and saying something in not great English like, "Please take brake now," because it thought that I was endangering myself. Think about your defaults, not only as a flute player, but as a human being as well. For instance, if you attend a summer music festival, one of the best things about it is that it can reset your defaults. Perhaps when you're at home in the summer, you fall into some defaults like watching a lot of TV. But if you go to a summer festival where they provide housing, there may not even be a TV, and you're surrounded by a group of people your own age, your own peers, who are all practicing very, very hard. That's why summer music festivals can be such a great thing to do, because they can reset your defaults. As a flute player, think about your defaults as well. For instance, sometimes I have students who don't understand how much air they really need to use to play the flute. And I'll tell them, blow harder. And they'll say, even harder? Even more air? And I'll say, yes, even more. I'll say, play louder. And they'll say, even louder? As though that's not even possible. Well, a good way to reset that kind of default is to play duets with a really great flutist. For instance, Julius Baker's students are known to say that the way that you learned the most from him was not from what he would tell you, but from playing duets with him and becoming more like him as a player. I had the experience growing up playing a duet with a very powerful player, and I realized playing duets with him just how hard I had to blow, just how much air I had to use, just how much I had to open up to even try to match his volume. That taught me more than any number of teachers saying, play louder, could ever have done. For our second car analogy, you're really going to have to use your imagination because it's a hot summer right now. But I use this analogy all the time to describe to my students how helpful it is to think ahead in the music. So pretend that you're driving a car. Even if you're too young to drive yet, you're gonna get there soon, and you can envision this, and when you start to drive, you will experience it. When you're driving in heavy rain or snow, most especially heavy snow, if you are looking just right in front of yourself, all you see is a blur of snowflakes or a blur of rain. It gets very scary to drive because it feels like you don't see or know what is coming next. But if you can focus far ahead of yourself, if you see a lamppost or maybe another car's tail lights that you can focus on and drive towards that point, everything becomes much simpler and more apparent as you're driving. The same thing happens when you play music. If you're looking just at the next note, you don't have the foresight to see what's coming next. You have a hard time shaping a large phrase or a large architectural structure of any sort in the music, and you're more likely to panic and mess up. But if you can look ahead, whether you're sight reading or whether you're playing a piece from memory, if you can look ahead, then you'll be prepared far in advance for what's coming next. So remember that and think of the sensation of driving a car in a heavy snowstorm. And I know many of my college students in Utah are well aware of how it feels to drive in a heavy snowstorm. All right, this is my third and final car analogy, at least for now, at least for today. And as I tell you about it, you'll realize that I am speaking of my foolish youth. So just remember how cool you ultimately become as a professional flute player with a great collection of car analogies, and realize that I overcame my foolish youth. But here's my final analogy, and that is that one time when I was 16 and I had barely started driving, I misjudged how much gas I had in my tank. It said empty, but I thought I still had more in there before I really had to go to the gas station. So I was driving home, which involved driving up a big, steep hill. And just as I was getting to the top of the hill, I started to push the gas pedal down more and more, but my car was sputtering. And it wasn't long before I had to pull to the side of the road And luckily there were some very nice, kind people who lived in the house right there. I went up and knocked. They helped me call my parents because, believe it or not, this was pre-cell phone days. My dad came out with a container of gas and we put it in the tank and we got me home. That didn't happen to me again because I realized that I needed to get to the gas station when my car told me to. But my guess is that flute players out there can guess what this analogy is about. Can you? It's about air. You have to keep your tank full, and for flute players, fuel is air. That's why you want to keep your lungs as full of air as possible at all times. It makes support easier, it makes your sound easier, it makes phrasing easier. You never want to get down to those last dregs of air that you have in your lungs. You want to be so prepared in advance for every contingency where you need to use that fuel. So if you've ever run out of gas in a car like I did, I'm sorry, and I hope you were safe and you were in a good place with good neighbors. But don't ever do it again, and certainly don't do it when you're playing the flute. Oh yeah, this is the best car collection ever. Clearly, if you're only going to have one car in your car collection, you want a Toyota, preferably a Toyota Prius. And even better still is if you can get a Prius Prime plug-in. That right there, that's for normal gas. But if you come around here to the other side of my car, you'll see where I can just plug this in and get some free fuel. And I say free because I like to go to the park where I can plug in and not even pay for that myself. Thank you very much, city taxes.